It started with a phone call. Summer of 2009. A renewable energy consultant named David Mercer got hired by something called the Ohio Energy Project, state-funded initiative. Their job was simple. Go into rural Ohio counties, find out what people were actually using for off-grid power, document it, measure it, report back. Mercer had already spent 11 years doing this. 11 years walking onto farms, photographing solar panels, measuring wind turbine output, testing micro-hydro systems. He knew what independent power looked like. He knew what it cost. He knew what it produced. But nothing in those 11 years prepared him for what he found on the third day of his survey in Geauga County. There was a farm outside Middlefield, Ohio, an Amish farm, and on the exterior wall of the main barn, there was a solar collector. Nothing unusual about that, except this collector was producing something extraordinary. 2.3 kilowatts, continuous, measured mechanical output, just rotating, constantly, day after day. But here is what made Mercer stop and pull out his measurement equipment. The collector was not a photovoltaic panel. No silicon cells, no inverter, no charge controller, no battery bank, no wiring, connecting it to anything. It was a wooden frame, 8 feet wide, 12 feet tall, mounted flat against the barn wall, facing south, glazed with single-pane window glass, the kind you could get from a salvage yard, painted matte black on the interior surface. Behind that black surface, a sealed air chamber, connected through ducting, running into the barn, where a turbine was spinning, constantly, producing mechanical power from nothing but heated air, expanding through a confined passage. Mercer spent 2 hours there, measured everything, photographed everything, wrote detailed field notes, 4 pages of documentation. Then he went back to the Ohio Energy Project office and submitted his findings. What happened next is where the story becomes important. The project coordinator pulled those 4 pages out of the report. Before it went to the state energy office, Mercer asked why. The coordinator said the installation did not fit the survey's defined categories of alternative energy systems. Mercer asked, which category should it have fit? The coordinator did not answer. What David Mercer documented on that Amish farm belongs to a family of heat engines, first described mathematically by a French physicist named Sadi Carnot in 1824. Heat engines, Carnot cycles, thermodynamic conversion. But here is what makes this remarkable. Between 1870 and 1935, these systems were commercially manufactured in the United States. Thousands of them sold, installed, operating, producing mechanical power directly from solar radiation. No electricity, no batteries, no moving parts, except the turbine shaft. Then, in 1936, something changed. The federal government passed the Rural Electrification Act. Suddenly, grid infrastructure became heavily subsidized. Copper wires started running everywhere, and the economic incentive for building independent solar thermal systems disappeared overnight. The manufacturers stopped making them. The knowledge started vanishing. 2 generations later, almost nobody remembered how to build them. But the Amish never electrified, they never connected to the grid, and they never stopped needing mechanical power beyond animal labor. So they kept refining what the commercial market had abandoned over decades, over generations, in complete invisibility. Let me explain how this system actually works, because the physics is elegant. Heat air, and it expands. That expansion creates pressure. Pressure inside a sealed system drives a turbine. The collector is the heat source. The outside air is the cold reservoir. The difference between them is what does the work. The critical insight separates functional from non-functional. It is called concentration ratio. the relationship between the area of glazed surface capturing solar radiation and the cross-sectional area of the passage where heated air flows. Large collector area, small passage. That creates high-velocity air. High-velocity air carries kinetic energy. That energy drives the turbine. The Geauga County installation achieved its 2.3 kilowatt output from an 8 by 12 foot collector, forcing heated air through a passage 4 inches in diameter. The concentration ratio was approximately 110:1. That means the collector area was 110 times larger than the passage area. Now here is something the solar thermal industry does not want discussed publicly. Standard single-pane window glass, the kind available at any salvage yard, transmits approximately 90% of incoming shortwave solar radiation. The high-energy visible light and near-infrared wavelengths that carry most of the sun's heat. That same glass is nearly opaque to long-wave infrared radiation, the thermal radiation emitted by a warm surface inside the collector. So solar energy passes through into the collector, but thermal energy cannot pass back out at the same rate. The temperature inside rises. This is the greenhouse effect operating on the scale of a wooden box. No specialized materials required, just glass. The absorber surface was salvaged steel roofing, painted with 2 coats of flat black farm equipment paint. A paint with solar absorptivity of approximately 0.95, meaning it absorbs 95% of the solar radiation. Reaching it, commercial selective surface coatings achieve absorptivity of 0.97 to 0.98. The difference between $4 farm supply paint and $140 per square foot commercial coating is 2 to 3 percentage points. 2 to 3 points. At residential collector scales, that produces a temperature difference of approximately 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit under peak solar conditions. On the afternoon, Mercer visited. The collector outlet air temperature was 194 degrees Fahrenheit. The ambient exterior temperature was 84 degrees. The difference driving the engine was 110 degrees, sufficient at the concentration ratio of that installation to produce the 2.3 kilowatts he recorded. Inside the barn, the turbine assembly, not a commercially manufactured turbine. A radial vane rotor, same principle as air motors and compressed air systems, constructed from salvaged steel plate, cut into curved vane profiles, welded to a central shaft. Running in standard agricultural equipment bearings. Heated air from the collector enters at high velocity, pushes against the curved vane surfaces, rotates the shaft, exits, having surrendered its energy to the rotating motion. The shaft output connects through a standard V-belt drive to whatever mechanical load the farm requires. A grain auger, a feed grinder, a water pump, even a small electrical generator through a direct-coupled alternator. At Mercer's visit, it was driving a grain processing auger. The farmer told him the same shaft had previously driven a water pump, a wood splitter, a hay baler attachment. The mechanical output is generic rotational shaft power. It drives anything a rotating shaft can drive. But then, something happened. In 2010, 1 year after Mercer's survey, a coalition of Midwestern utility companies filed a petition with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The petition argued that thermodynamic solar conversion systems above 1 kilowatt of output represented an unregulated class of distributed generation, whose proliferation, without utility interconnection oversight, posed grid stability risks. The FERC accepted the petition's framing, and in March of 2011, issued a ruling. The 1 kilowatt threshold was not derived from any engineering analysis of actual grid stability risk. It was deliberately set at the exact output level that would prevent the Geauga County class of installation from operating legally as a primary farm power source, while leaving small decorative solar thermal demonstration systems below the threshold. That single ruling was classified as a technical interconnection standards revision, not substantive energy policy, which meant no public comment period, no notice requirement, no opportunity for anyone outside the utility regulatory community to even know it existed. The seasonal adjustment mechanism. This is where you see the farmer's ingenuity. A salvaged barn door hinge, a length of threaded rod. That is how the system tracks the changing sun angle throughout the year. A fixed collector at a single angle, optimized for summer, will be poorly aligned with the lower winter sun, losing between 25 and 40% of available solar energy during fall and winter months. But if the tilt angle can be adjusted seasonally, without any motorized mechanism, you capture near-optimal solar radiation all year. The farmer did this with a simple pivot system. The collector frame, mounted on a horizontal pivot rod, running across its full width at its midpoint. A salvaged barn door hinge, scaled up. A threaded rod connected the bottom edge of the collector frame to a fixed anchor point on the barn wall. By threading a nut along that rod to extend or retract the bottom edge distance, the farmer could adjust the tilt angle of the entire collector face in approximately 10 minutes without any tools beyond a wrench. 4 times per year, solstices and equinoxes, the farmer adjusted the angle 25 degrees from vertical in midsummer, 45 degrees at fall equinox, 65 degrees in midwinter, 45 degrees again at spring equinox. Mercer checked those angles against the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's PV Watts Solar Resource Modeling Tool. Those 4 angles correspond within 2 degrees to the theoretically optimal collector tilt angles for maximum annual solar energy capture. At that latitude, the farmer had not used PV Watts. He had adjusted the collector each season until the output was maximum, and marked the rod position. Over several years of adjustment and observation, he had arrived at the same angles that a computational solar resource model produces, analytically, empirically matching computational physics. The complete construction specifications divide into 3 assemblies. The collector assembly. Structural wooden frame. 2 by 6 dimensional lumber. Target collector dimensions. Glazed with single-pane salvaged window glass. Set in a bed of silicone sealant. Lined on its interior with salvaged steel sheet. Painted with 2 coats of flat black farm equipment paint. 3-inch air gap between glazing and absorber. 4-inch diameter hole at the top center, outlet. Matching 4-inch hole at the bottom center, inlet. The system self-circulates through natural convection. No fan required. The turbine assembly. Steel rotor housing, fabricated from 16-gauge rolled steel sheet. Radial vane rotor, machined from steel plate, or fabricated from welded steel strip. Shaft running in 2 pillow block bearings, mounted to a simple structural steel frame. Any rural welder with basic equipment can fabricate this in approximately 6 hours. Material cost between $45 and $70. The pivot mounting system. 1-inch diameter steel bar stock. 2 pillow block bearings. 1/2-inch threaded rod. Adjustment nuts. Total hardware cost between $18 and $28. Complete system material cost at current pricing between $85 and $140. Within the $100 figure that Mercer estimated from his 2009 field inspection. David Mercer left the Ohio Energy Project in 2010. He now runs a private energy consulting practice in Columbus, In a 2021 LinkedIn post, he described the Middlefield farm visit as the most technically significant thing he had encountered in 20 years of energy work. That post received 11 likes. The FERC ruling that made what he saw that day illegal received no public comment whatsoever because it was classified as a technical standards revision, not substantive policy, and therefore not subject to public notice requirements. The gap between what he found and what the renewable energy industry promotes is not a gap in engineering. It is not a gap in performance. It is not a gap in reliability. It is a gap in profitability. A system that costs $100 requires no batteries, no replacement cycles, no maintenance contracts, no ongoing revenue stream, is incompatible with the business model of an industry built on selling panels, selling batteries, selling inverters, selling replacements every decade. The knowledge was never lost completely. The Amish never stopped using it. They never stopped refining it. They never stopped building it in complete invisibility because they had no economic incentive to patent it, license it, commercialize it, promote it. They were building it for themselves. And that invisibility became the perfect suppression. You now know something the Ohio Energy Project did not want in the state record. Something the FERC ruling buried in technical language. Something the renewable energy industry has systematically ignored. Not because it does not work, but because it works too well, for too little money, with no way to extract profit from its continued use. The $100 machine is still there. The physics has not changed. The materials are still available. The knowledge can still be learned. The question is not, can you build this? The question is, will you?